And we are live. Hello, everybody. Good evening.
Good morning.
You are here in the UK with me, and good morning if you are in Australia. So this is a Self Help Club Author Live, a little later than usual because, I am talking to the lovely Aime Mcnee, who is based in Sydney. Is that right, Amy?
That's right.
In Australia. So it's tomorrow morning where Amy is. So thank you for being here, everybody. Amy, a little bit about Amy, in case you don't know, is I'm just looking at my notes here because in full disclosure, first of all, we're talking about Amy's brand new book, which is I Don't Want a Job, and is a crowdfunder, which is why neither of us have a copy here because even Amy doesn't have a copy of the book. However, so this is like a little bit of a last minute get together. So it's going to be the best kind of conversation, I think, Amy, where it's just like it's just going to be a get to know you, which is like my favorite type of interview. So these are my notes. So I have done a bit of research. So Amy is a writer, speaker, and creativity coach, and the woman behind an online movement encouraging people to make more art more often. She's the author of several books, most recently I Don't Want a Job, which is an extended version of the essay, the viral essay that you wrote, I think in January last year by the same name, and published for a limited time only by the Brilliant Pound Project. So available until February the 24th, I think, if that's correct.
That's right. Few more days.
Few more days. So this new book takes aim at the drudgery of work, challenging that assumption that having a job is like a sacred, unquestionable part of life. And Amy wants to urge us instead, I think, to seek work that makes us feel alive and authentic. So tonight we are going to talk about why Amy hates work so much, about that essay, and also the response to that essay, because I think privileged little shit is what I've seen you write about. So, Amy, welcome. A very long intro, but thank you for being patient.
God, Tony. I'm so grateful. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for you Europeans and Brits for being up a little bit later. So grateful and so excited to talk about this kind of spicy topic.
Yes, it is spicy, and it has. You have been ruffling feathers, which I get the impression that you're cool with that.
You got to ruffle a bit of feathers. I mean, if we're artists, we're creators. I think if we're not ruffling feathers, like, are we doing our job? Are we holding something back?
Sure. And also, I think the kind of people who are taking umbrage, umbrage is a good word, isn't it? Who are taking umbrage or offense at what you're saying are probably not the people that you're speaking to anyway.
And they're also... I don't know. It's a really beautiful question. When I say I don't want a job, I get a huge array of different responses. And I think sometimes the most defensive, the most that is a ridiculous and unrealistic and selfish and privileged thing to say, are people who really, really hate their jobs.
Yeah.
And I almost think that these people are the ones who just need to slowly, even if, they hear it once, they react very strongly to this chick on the internet saying it. But then over years, they think, well, maybe it's okay to really not be okay with the current conditions of the world. I hope that it gets in there. And I think with a lot of people who have very big reactions, I hope that slowly it kind of takes hold and gives them permission really to ask for something else.
Yeah, it's starting a conversation, isn't it, for people?
Yeah, exactly.
At least. And I've been reading through. So I read through the essay that started this, and then the kind of follow-ups. And in my previous life, I was a journalist for some big news organisations. Infamous, I think we would say. And it's so funny because I was the opposite. I think I just wanted a job when I was younger. I just think I wanted to get out of my small town and get to London. So that in my head was get a job. And then working for a newspaper, it was like suffering, like you talk about, I'm not built to suffer, and that's okay. I don't want to. I think whereas when I was working for a newspaper, I was like, oh no, suffering's just part of it. This means that I'm good at my job. And it's like you need someone like you to be like, this isn't okay, almost like shaking me with the essay. So thank you.
I used to look at people who were really okay with just taking shit, and I used to feel so much shame for not being able to take shit. And I think it's a lot to do with perhaps my neurodivergency. I have ADHD, which means that if I'm not curious and I'm not interested, I have no capacity to engage, which meant when I was doing all of these jobs that didn't light me up, I had almost like a biological resistance to be able to take it. And so I was never able to hold a job that didn't interest me. And I never had a job that interested me. So I was constantly rotating work because I just couldn't stick it, or I was getting fired because I wasn't able to fake it. And so I thought it was the greatest shame that I couldn't tolerate suffering, that I couldn't tolerate boredom. And it's still slowly only dawning on me that this is something that I'm very grateful that I have. And I think a caveat here is often that like most of us we have to, it's not a choice for a lot of us. Like we just have to tolerate suffering because we need to work. But I'm grateful that my capacity is low for it, because it meant that I asked for more.
Sure. There's a brilliant part in the essay when you talk about, you say to your therapist, I just don't want a job, or I don't want to work maybe. And therapist is like, but you have to. That's
Yeah.
like, and acting as though it's like, that's ridiculous.
That's what you have to, yeah. And that's the response I think that most people get when I say the phrase, like, I don't want a job. It's like, well, what else are you going to do? And that's really valid, right? We're living in a capitalist neoliberal world where we all have to make money in order to survive. But that doesn't mean we can't have this conversation. And I think a lot of us can't be bothered to have conversations that seem a bit too macro, a bit too, oh, that's so unrealistic. Like, what would be a world where we don't, center work in our lives? But we are at the precipice of huge change. And I think it's the time to have the conversation about decentering work from our lives and jobs from our lives. We're looking down the barrel of an AI revolution where a lot of particularly white collar jobs are going to become even more redundant than they already are. And we are shifting. And what if we shifted from protect jobs, keep everyone in labor, to let's have a life where we don't work as hard and where we can center art and connection and joy and creativity? Because when I speak to basically everybody, I see a deeply lethargic and exhausted people who are giving most of their time and most of their life energy to jobs that don't light them up. And they have so many other things they would love to do, but they are too exhausted to do it. And I grieve the amount of art and creation that we lose because we are too exhausted from the jobs that we have. And I think as we look down this like very new era of work and labor, it's time for us to have discussions about what it is we want. And I see so many of us trying to grip on to like the old guard of like, protect jobs, like we need to be able to make sure we have work. And I just want to question, like, is that really what we want to do? I think we want to build something really different where we get to, rest and play and connect and, rejuvenate. Most of us like have never experienced what it's like to truly like have time and capacity to do what we want because we're either at work or recovering from work.
Yeah.
So yeah, this feels like a really delusional conversation, but it's not. And I demand to have this rhetoric. And I want us to have this conversation now.
Yeah, 100%. And so you were 34 yesterday. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
How did you get so wise as a 34-year-old? Let's talk a little bit about how so art is your full-time, is your work now, right? This is what you do. So how did you get there? Because I think I have seen you write that you worked and then you kind of worked to support your art for a while as well. So there was that element. And there's definitely people that will relate to that, isn't there? There's kind of like, this is my day job, this is what I do to make money, but then my whatever lights me up or whatever, my soul happens out of hours.
Yeah, so I did support my writing and my art with regular normal jobs for around 10 years. And I really struggled with it. As I said, I hated coming home from those jobs and giving the scraps of myself to my art. And I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a professional writer. And the reason why I wanted to be a professional writer, it was because I wanted to write more. I think a lot of times when we look at people who want to be professional artists, we're like, oh, do you want to be famous? Do you want to make loads of money? Like, oh, you want attention? It's like most artists want to be professional artists because they just want to make art with their whole lives. And that was definitely it for me. So I began to very slowly and incredibly, it was a very beautiful journey, but it's also really painful, carve out a professional life as a writer. And I now live as a professional writer and a professional artist. And for me, it is the most holy and magical way I could wrangle this capitalist system into working for me.
Mm.
And I'm so grateful for it. And actually, with this Pound Project, we have I Don't Want a Job is the first book, which is the book I've been really pushing. But we also have a second book called Not a Real Job. And that book is about creativity and creativity as a profession. So they're these kind of like almost, they oppose each other in so many ways. One book is saying, I don't want a job. And the other book is saying, how do we make art a job? But I want room for both of these conversations to happen at the same time. But yeah, it took a long time for me to figure out how to make this work for myself, but I did. And the way I became a professional writer was by not waiting to be chosen, and I chose myself. I didn't
Mm.
want to have to, well, I did. I desperately wanted to be picked. And I thought that was the only way I was going to be able to make it work as an author. But I ended up self-publishing literally ebooks on my website. And that replaced my waitressing income after about a year. And I was able to live on not a lot, but make writing work. And slowly over the years, I've built up ways that I can, work for myself, choose myself, but I've also started working with traditional publishers. I've got an array of different ways that I've managed to put my writing out there and take up space as an author and be able to survive as a human being on this very bizarre capitalist planet.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's so amazing. I think just before we went live, I was asking you about, is this your third book in 2 years then? Is this
This is my third book in 1 year.
third book in 1 year? Okay. So when you talk about like you don't want a job, you obviously work. Like this, like books don't just magically appear, do they? So
Of
there maybe
course.
there's a difference between the job and the work. But I'd love to know, like, what does a day in your life look like? Is there any kind of routine? Like at Shelf Help,
Such
we're
a
very
great
much about
question.
like routines and rituals and all that kind of stuff. So tell me.
First of all, great distinction. And I think the English language needs more words for work and job. Like, effort and creation is, of course, a form of work. And, my partner, James, who is also an author, is like what you would call and what the world would call like the classic lazy guy, like thrives on doing nothing. And he looks at me and he goes, "You work way too hard." So in many ways, like I love to create, I love to do, and there is an interesting conversation there. There's really nothing lazy about me. I just have to be doing what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
So that's a conversation we have in the book. But in terms of like what my day looks like, I have anchors in my day, and then I let curiosity lead me for a lot of the rest of my day. So I always journal. I've been journaling for like 2000 and something days in a row, apart from one day, which we don't talk about. And it was just a random day where I forgot. So I'm always journaling, just touching base with myself. It's like a little meeting with Amy. I tend to be incredibly gentle. I feel like it's like I was watching my sister the other day wake up my niece from a nap. She just very
Mm.
gently taps her on her shoulder and she picks her up and hey, how are you going? How are you
Oh,
feeling? How was
yeah.
your sleep? And that's how I speak to myself in my journal. Morning. What's happening? How are you feeling? What would you like to do today? You're doing so well. And I call it like this practicing of mothering myself, because I believe that we need constant mothering as human beings, and we need to be
Mm.
treated with like incredible compassion, especially if we're going to create art. Making and creating is like the most vulnerable, like exposing act. And most artists are just sitting there like trying to discipline ourselves and trying to beat ourselves up. We've got an inner critic
Mm.
that's not enough. You've got to do more. And I certainly had that voice, and I still do from time to time. But that voice controlled me for years,
Mm.
until
And
I found this
Amy,
practice.
can I just ask that, so when you first started journaling, were you using
Mm.
that voice, or is that something that has adapted?
Yeah, so when I first started journaling, I was probably at the lowest point of my life. I'd been fired from a job and I was unemployed again, and nothing was working with my writing. And I didn't want another job. I was like, I can't go on seek.com or whatever and look for another job. And I went to the pages and it was filled with like the most vitriolic, cruel language. And it was like, you're a lazy piece of shit. Like, why can't you just be an adult? Why can't you work like everybody else? Like, why do you have to demand this like beautiful life for yourself? Nobody else is asking for it. Really aggressive language that I've actually been really looking back at the moment, because this was the greatest pain for me when it comes to not wanting a job, was this huge
Mm.
shame. But after, maybe even just like a few weeks of journaling consistency, I found at the very end of my writing, a tone would shift, because I couldn't leave the page with such negative, like
Mm.
it was almost bringing me down. I speak to people who are trying to journal a lot and they say, I feel worse after I leave. And that's what was happening to me. But without my knowing, like one day this voice appeared on the page and she was like, oh, Amy, you are being so fucking hard on yourself, and I just need you
Mm.
to give yourself a break.
Mm.
And it was like, I just was like, who is this? And I developed it almost like a fiction author. Like, I write fiction. I saw this beautiful voice on the page. I was like, what if she could take more care of me? And this voice of mothering just continued and grew until it is a huge part of my practice now. And I always say if we want to do wild and ambitious and crazy, beautiful things with our life, then we have to be incredibly, incredibly compassionate with ourselves. And I don't see that there's another way that we can do that. So I found this voice on the page and I encouraged her. And now every day she wakes me up slowly. So I
Mm.
always journal.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
And then tell me about, so you say you have anchors and then
Yeah.
but
So the
then
journaling's
let's
my
see where the
first
day takes
anchor.
you.
Yeah. Journaling's my first anchor. And then I will do my writing project du jour. So whether that is I am working on a book or I'm just focusing on my Substack essays or whatever it is, I'll make sure I just touch base. And I have a thing called bare minimums, which I wrote a lot about in my book, We Need Your Art, which is I just need to do 300 to 500 words. I need to touch base. And that just allows me to, if I'm having a shit day, I can turn up and just do the
Yeah.
very bare minimum and still, feel connected to my practice. But if I'm having a good day, I can take it a little bit further. So I'll do that. And then I have another touch point as I move my body. I think creatives, especially writers, we forget that we are not a brain in a jar. And I
Yeah.
find my
I relate to that. Yeah.
my writing, we need to remember like our writing practice is deeply impacted by our body. And that is just so easy to forget because it just feels like it's got nothing to do with my body. But it's your body is your tool and you must take care of it. So I have a very intense project, not intense. I just move my body. I try to move my body 4 to 5 times a week. So I'll go to the gym. I also love to sauna. So I might sit in the sauna for a bit, have some low stimulation time. Like I am someone who I want noise all the time. Like I have the office on when I write. I need sound. And so I have my one time in the sauna where I sit there with no noise and I just allow my brain to do
You're
what
just
she needs to
I'm
do.
just recalibrating the
Yeah.
nervous system.
Yeah. And then I will almost always paint because I love to paint. And that's almost just for me. And I'll nearly always read as well. So these are like my anchors. And if I've had them all at some point in the day, then it's a day well spent.
Yeah. Tell us what you're reading at the moment, and then we're going to talk. Well,
If
then
it,
we're going to circle back to Substack.
I am actually reading what I think may be my most favorite book of all time, which is very exciting that we are talking about
That's a
this
big
right now.
claim.
I know. I mean, I'm probably 2/3 of the way through. I read Barbara Kingsolver's, what's her Pulitzer? What is she?
The Poisonwood,
No, the
is
other
it?
one. Damn it.
Demon
Anyway,
Copperhead is the
I'm reading
one.
Unsheltered. I'm reading
Okay.
Unsheltered right now.
Yeah.
And I've loved my Amy, this is so embarrassing. I can't retain titles very well. I read my first Barbara Kingsolver book last year and was
Yeah.
obsessed. It's the one about the boy, so beautiful. And then I was like, let's go on a Barbara Kingsolver spree. And so I started reading Unsheltered, and I thought nothing could top the initial book I read. And I'm so in love with this book. I'm so in love with the way she writes. It's my first book that I've ever gotten a pen and I underline just lines I like. And I've been writing in the margins, and I feel really, I hate to use the name of my Instagram, but I feel incredibly inspired to write when I read her books. So yeah, just delighting. I'm delighting in her words.
Gorgeous. Yeah, when I interview quite a lot of authors, and most people will say that they get inspired to write by just reading as much as possible from of other people's, that kind of
Yeah.
breadth of books. So back to so you talk about your writing practice and your Substack. So Substack is, I imagine, is becoming a big. Well, it's led to a book deal. So yes, it's become a big part of your professional practice, your writing practice.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the essay then, I Don't Want a Job, and what led to that, or was that something you've been noodling on for a while and it just seemed like the right time?
I've been speaking to more traditional publishers about I Don't Want a Job lately, and I'm that conversation is ongoing, but they keep saying it's not really in your wheelhouse, like you're a creativity girly, and I'm like, I don't know how to explain to you that this is so in my wheelhouse. I Don't Want a Job is why I write books, and it sits at the bedrock of my whole life, this deep shame that I didn't want to do traditional work. And I wrote this essay, and it was the most vulnerable essay I've ever written. Truly my greatest shame. And I wrote it so quickly. And I was like, I can't believe I'm trying to articulate this. Like, it's just not going to fly. And it was so offhand. And I was like, Aime, I just really think you should put down like this great shame that you feel. And I've
Hmm.
tried to speak about it before, but I've always felt very misunderstood, and I haven't quite been able to articulate it properly. But obviously in this essay, like, I was able to really explain this great shame that I had for not being a proper adult, for not wanting to participate in the workforce. And I just posted it. I couldn't look at it because I felt so exposed. And then um, I've never had anything go viral like that. And I was still, just beginning on Substack. And the impact was profound. I had people walking up to me in the street. I was living in the UK at that time, in the middle of nowhere, being like, I just read, first of all, how do you even know what I look like? They were like, I
Yeah.
just read your work.
Wow.
So, and it changed my life.
Yeah.
I've never seen like my work impact people so profoundly. And it was so healing for me, because I think I
Mm.
felt so alone and so stupid
Yeah.
for struggling this hard with something that just seems to be like universally like accepted.
Mm.
Um, and so, yeah, profoundly healing. This whole journey about talking about work has been profoundly healing. And it's just kept growing and growing and growing. And getting to speak to people who feel similarly to me has been really life changing.
Yeah. And I think you talk about in the essay the idea that it's the moral failing, or it's like a moral failure
Yeah,
to
it's a
not
moral
want
failure.
to not want a job, to not put up with a job, to
Mm.
not follow that path. And the response, so I think it was, I've written it down here, nearly 14,500 likes
Mm.
that essay got. But then, so with that, and I know that you have a big social media presence already, but with that kind of attention obviously comes praise and positive impact that you can feel, but then there's also the negative side of it. So how do you deal with that? Or how have you dealt with that?
Yeah, I think initially it was hard because what the negative comments were saying were what I was saying to myself. So
Mm.
it was like my
Okay.
own inner critic reflected back at me, and I found that really challenging to wrangle with. But over time, I can see that like this is a very contentious, difficult conversation for humanity to have, and I feel stronger and stronger each day that even though it brings up very hard emotions for a lot of us, and it reflects a lot of my pain in some of these comments, like it's an important conversation to have. And so I feel every day a bit more resilient to these comments. But it was initially very difficult to have someone say, oh, you're just a privileged little shit, or lucky for some, or so you don't want to participate in this world, you want to leave it to everybody else to do work.
Mm.
um and again, these were the thoughts that I was saying to myself. But being able to expand on this topic with this book has allowed me to really build my argument, and to also just state my case, and to state why this is not a selfish or childlike conversation. This is a revolutionary, important conversation to have about how we are going forward as humanity. And being able to see it in the macro rather than my micro failing has been like really, really, it's made me be able to handle it a lot better.
Mm. And the description of it as a manifesto is like, that
Mm.
language is just so, I love it, right? It
Thank
kind of,
you.
it reframes it as like something so powerful, rather than, it's
Yeah,
not, you're
thank
not
you.
apologizing. There's no
No,
apology
I'm
there.
not.
No.
Yeah, I think, often I've been doing a few interviews, and people are like, you know, when I say I don't want a job, they're like, yeah, but like you want like some sort of job. And I'm like, no. And I want to be very clear about this. Like, I don't want any job. And people are like, but you love your job now, you're a writer. Like, don't you want to do this work? I really want to write. I love writing. I love everything I want to do I am doing with my life. But it would be great if it wasn't tied to the fact that I have to do it to
Mm.
survive.
Mm, yeah, sure. Let's talk about the Pound Project then, and
Mm.
how this essay became then. So the Pound Project, for anybody that doesn't know, is a publishing house that crowdfunds, and it's author first, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah.
And will you tell us about how you met JP, and how you got
Mm.
involved with Pound Project?
So I was aware of the Pound Project. I'd read Emma Gannon's books with the Pound Project, and Layla's book, and I was loving what they were doing. Any sort of interesting variation on the publishing model fascinates me, because I see it as an industry that needs to adapt and change. And so I'm very excited when anyone does something new in how we distribute and get books out there. Um, But JP landed in my inbox, and I was like, "Well, this is very exciting." And we had a meeting with Johnny, and we looked at what topics we would like to expand on. And I immediately was like, "I want to expand on I don't want a job." This essay, and he read the essay, and he was like, "Yeah, let's go for it."
Mm.
So it's been amazing for me to get to expand I don't want a job, but also it's been amazing watching Pound Project work and how it functions, and to see how publishing can be so different. And I am very excited about a model that puts the author first. My rights revert back in 6 months' time, meaning I can expand on this project
Yeah.
however I want in 6 months. And I think this is an incredibly important thing for authors. The fact that, We Need Your Art was sold to Penguin, and I can't do anything more with this idea. She is not my book, almost.
Mm.
I want to see a change there. I know the author, what's his name, Hugh Howey, who wrote turned into a really cool Netflix series. I'm going to confirm, not great on book titles. Hugh
Okay.
Howey became such a big name that he now is able to navigate and negotiate with traditional publishers, rights
Sure.
reverting.
Hmm.
Really, Silo. He wrote Silo.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and I love this idea that like these are our books, and like the idea
Yeah.
of I'll rent them to you, but I want those rights back. And so I
Yeah.
really love this idea that Johnny's put up in this system. It's author first, like we split profits 50-50, and it's an incredibly collaborative process that puts the author at the center and says, you took the risk, you did the work, I want to reward you, rather than what we see in traditional publishing, which is like, you're lucky enough to be chosen by us, and we will give you a tiny percent, even though you took all the risk.
Yeah. I think you're the only author I've ever interviewed then that has done self-publishing and traditional publishing and now crowdfunding. So
Oh my gosh, I'm very proud of myself.
I'm so proud of you too.
Thank you.
And we also have the same publisher because I'm doing a Pound Project book later this year. So
It's
that's
so
how we
exciting.
connected. So it's very cool to be able to say that, isn't it? I love that.
Beautiful, like a sisterhood. I just think it's wonderful.
Yeah. And I suppose because we're talking about the Pound Project book now, we're going to be loving that side of things. But how
Mhm.
different have the three different? I mean, you've written 3 books in a year.
Yes.
This is
Yeah.
amazing. But how different have all the processes been? Have you? I suppose there's bits you've enjoyed and challenges with
Yeah.
each of them, right?
There's huge challenges to each of them, and there's huge benefits to each of them. And I'm so glad. And I think I will continue to have an array. At the moment, I don't see myself narrowing down to one. I want to experience, and I would love to experience different models. Like, I don't know what it could be, but like, I'm so interested as to how many different ways we could do this. Self-publishing gives me a huge amount of control, and autonomy is incredibly important to me.
Hmm.
But it's incredibly lonely. And working with Penguin Life and Ebury and Australia Penguin last year with We Need Your Art was very, I really loved that there were other people who had a stake in my book. I loved the idea that other people cared how well it did.
Sure. Yeah.
And I enjoyed that feeling of like a team behind me, because self-publishing, it's me and it's my partner James, and I'm
Yeah.
doing the audiobook recording, and and like that is amazing and very grassroots, but it can feel almost like it's not real.
Mm.
And there was a kind of a sense of, oh, this is really happening by working with TradPub. Working with JP is this kind of beautiful mix of both. I've got a team. JP really cares about, how we do. He updates me on sales. It feels like really like almost like a good mixture.
Mm.
Um, and it's been really interesting, like having a 3-week sales period. Like a huge fan of a
Yeah.
closed sales period.
Okay.
With traditional publishing, they cared very much about pre-sales. And so, I did 100 days of pre-sale marketing for We Need Your Art, and I sold as many books as I did in the last week with Pound Project. You know,
Wow.
there is
I mean,
a
that's amazing information to have, isn't it?
isn't like
Mm.
I don't think that my audience, I think millennials, Zoomers, like we're not pre-buying shit.
Mm.
And having that much energy expenditure for pre-sales was just a humongous waste of time. But
Mm.
the problem is that publishers, trad pubs, will push your marketing budget further if you've got big pre-sales. Like they really take them so seriously. Um, and I see that as a huge issue, especially for me personally. I also have a huge
Yeah.
amount of sales for audiobooks. And so no one no one pre-buys an audiobook, you get it on the day. So for me, the pre-sale, not having pre-sales and having a capped time period has just been the most delightful way to market a book ever, actually. I've never enjoyed marketing a
Mm.
book more than I've enjoyed marketing I Don't Want a Job.
Sure. Well, I am loving, and I'm sure everyone will agree with me, loving the posts and the
Thank
photo
you.
shoot
Thank
and all
you.
of it to go with it. But it does feel like very much it just suits you and it suits your energy. That kind
Thank
of
you. Yeah.
it sounds. I feel like you are someone who runs with something. If it's like if you want to do it,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
it's like this
Let's
being able
go.
to So that speed to market and that kind of, and it's just a disruptive, isn't it? And there's
Yeah, I
something
love.
quite cool about that as well.
I think, yeah, I work fast and, I work with what interests me at the moment. And so to get to create and put out so quickly, and JP works quick. I mean, amazing working with Trug Pubs and then JP, who the Pound Project, they're turning it around so fast and they're working
Hmm.
at such a pace. And it's so cool because I, as someone who loves that, and I get to respond quickly and I get to create quickly and then share it immediately.
Yeah.
Um, and I think a closed cutoff for a sales period just really works. There's no urgency in a lot of book sales because you could buy a book whenever you wanted. But this book is
Mm.
available for 3 weeks only, and you will not be able to get it ever again. And I love a sense of urgency for a book. Just really has
Yeah.
helped a lot.
Sure. Limited edition. Love it.
Mm.
So, bearing in mind the time, then I will let you go shortly.
No, 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 all
Uh,
good.
so once the campaign has finished and there's been
Mm.
that kind of big, because it is like you say that I hadn't really thought about that before, but you're right that all the energy that goes into like the pre-launch, pre-sales, all that kind of stuff. So last night I did a live with two nervous system healers, and we were
Oh,
talking about
wonderful.
the kind of sometimes you need that sense of it's up and down, and it should be the kind of like your energy and your activity and your
Yes,
nervous
definitely.
system. So how will you be looking after yourself once this big push is over?
Yeah, so obviously this year, 3 books 1 year was too much, and I learned that. And
Okay.
I'm glad I learned it, and I really hope, like I'm like sitting down with myself in the journal, being like, I actually hope you've actually learned this, because like I'm that sort of
It's
person who
like
will get excited.
this will be the kind of mother that's like, right, okay, you did well,
Yeah,
but that's enough's
sometimes the
enough.
mother voice, she's
Yeah,
she's like, sit down.
yeah. We need to
Have
have a
you learned
word.
this lesson?
Yeah.
Um, I feel like I'm really on a journey of not just listening to my body, but respecting it. So yesterday I had nothing to give. And you know what? There was no reason why I had nothing to give. And in the past, I would have sat down and been like, Amy, like, why do you have no energy today? Like, it doesn't make sense. Where was the expenditure?
Mm,
And I always need my body to like write an essay as to why it is the way it is.
nice.
But I'm learning that the body does not lie. And yesterday I did not have anything to give. Therefore, I respond, and letting her be the boss rather than like an antagonist in my life that I'm constantly working against. And so yesterday I did not do anything at all. And I can really not do anything. I just watch TV. And I'm getting much better at that. So for me, it's very day by day. I'm not very good at planning anything in advance. Again, I'm meeting myself where I'm at on the pages. How do you feel? I do not feel good. Great.
Mm,
Let's respond accordingly. So I'm not going to have any plan for when this closes. I'm not going to be like, let's have a week off. But if my body needs a week off, I will respond accordingly.
okay. I love that. Amazing.
Mm.
And you are very, it sounds like you're either learning to be or you are self-compassionate. And I just wonder, to close then, have you done specific work around that? I think you mentioned that you kind of have, but is there any
Mhm.
books that you've read or any teachers you've worked with or practices that you would recommend to anyone who needs to maybe be kinder to themselves or would like to be kinder to themselves?
I don't want to be a little dick, but I taught this to myself. And I
Okay.
really feel like this was an internal practice. And I talk about it a lot in We Need Your Art. And I think it helps, especially if we've never learned to talk to ourselves in this way, or we've never had an example of anyone talking to us in this way, to listen to somebody else do it. So in We Need Your Art, I try to take care of you in the way I take care of myself. And so that's a book if you want to find a way to speak gently and to allow yourself to thrive,
Nice.
then We Need Your Art, I think, serves. Hate to just put my own book right there, but I think that I taught mothering to myself, and I'm really proud of that. Probably one of my greatest achievements.
Yeah, that is an amazing. And then if you can teach it to other people, I
Yeah,
mean,
what
cherry
an
on the
honor.
cake.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, thank you, my love. It's been amazing to talk to
I am
you. I'm
so
so
grateful.
pleased for you. I'm so pleased we're connected. Thank you, everybody, for watching and being here. I Don't Want a Job is available until
the 24th of Feb. We've got a few more days, and then she's gone.
And then she's gone. So I'm going to share this as a replay tomorrow, and we'll make sure with the links in there and everything. But I'm sure people can find it.
Thank you, Tony. I'm so
Awesome
grateful
to
for
see
you.
you. Nice to see everybody.
Have a good
Great day.
evening.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
See you later.
Bye.